Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Blue Dope.
Hey,
And today we have the Yanla of finances,
come
Tiffany
on.
Alicia, aka the Budget Nista. Today we're gonna help you fix your bank.
Beloved budget niece.
Hello, beloved. Hello, how are you?
How are you feeling today?
Honestly, I feel good because I'm about to go on a 6-week vacation and
6 weeks.
Yeah, 6 weeks off because honestly, I have been working myself to the bone.
Right.
And I just needed time away. And so my coach was like, I have a personal coach who's also a therapist, and she was like, I need you to take a month off. I said, a month? That's too long. And she's like, oh, you're right, 6 weeks. I was like, wait, what? And so, yeah, I'm excited about it because anybody who knows me knows that, like, I mean, I work, you know? And so, but it's also really important, not just for me, but for my team to see that, like, that you take time for yourself, you know, because they weren't taking, even though we have endless vacation days, they weren't taking them. But I was setting the example that the boss don't take off. I can't take off, you know? So
people are scared to take off if you're just 24/7.
Yeah. Damn, I gotta keep up.
Exactly. So no, I'm excited about that because, you know, one of the most creative states that you can be in is joy.
Right.
And so when you're relaxed and you're woosah and you're filled with joy, I mean, that's when you really can, like, you know, it's like the sky's the limit for what you can dream up for yourself.
I hope you're gonna take a real vacation because it's hard to unplug.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing no social. I'm taking all the social apps off my phone. I'm not doing I told them, I said only 2 people, 3. I said Jesus, and he don't email. Michelle Obama. True. I said, and Oprah, but Oprah already hit, well, not Oprah, but OWN. So I taped something with them last week. I said, well, scratch that off. We did OWN already. So we just waiting for Shells. Okay.
That's it.
I said, now if Shells hit me up, call me, you know.
That's a personal nickname.
Yeah, right. I know. Yeah. Cause you know, we cool. It's like, I've never met her. But yeah, so I just said, if that happens, you know, then, you know, hit me up and we work something out. But other than that, like, no, I want real time away. For the first week, I rented a beach house and I'm just going to chill and vibe out. Like I bought some watercolor, some paint. I bought my friend, she signed me up for some online knitting class. I said, okay, let's do it. Y'all about to all get sweaters for your birthdays.
Everybody.
Yes, everybody. Yeah. So, you know, because it's like, well, what is the purpose of life if not to live? I mean, I'm all for, you know, like hustle, grind, you know, put the work in, but what's the purpose of putting the work in? You know, like you're not just working for working's sake. Mm-hmm.
So many people wait until they retire from it all.
Yes. It's like,
But now let's take it all the way back, right? So we want to understand, where are you from? What city are you representing?
I am from Brick City, Newark, New Jersey. Not Newark, but Newark. But I'm also by way of Nigeria. So I was born here in Newark, but my parents were born and raised in Nigeria. So if you have Nigerian parents, they're like, well, I thought you crazy, you're Nigerian. So I am also Nigerian.
Niger princess.
Yes, exactly. So I'm also Nigerian, but I live here in Newark. So I was born here, but I was raised all over Jersey. But then I came back here in my 20s to start teaching. I was a preschool teacher for like 10 years here in Newark. And
oh, wow.
Then I started my business, The Budget Nista, here in Newark. So, and my husband was born and raised in Newark. And so now this is where we live.
Nice.
You're Brick City to the core.
Yeah. So I have a question. So your Niger parents, when you decided to become the Budget Nista, what was their response? And what exactly did they figure out? Okay, this is what she does, because we know the vibes. Yes. African and West Indian.
Yes.
And we know the vibes.
They were already disappointed with me because I was a teacher. So this is like, because for real, like, here's what Niger parents think. This is what most foreign parents think. You could be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, or a drug dealer. Everything else is a drug dealer.
Right.
Like, it's like, I'm like, oh, mom, I'm going to be a teacher, a drug dealer. I'm like, what? a teacher, drug dealer, meaning like a disappointment.
Right.
Wow.
Like, you know, I said, doctor, lawyer, engineer, sis, maybe a pharmacist. I'll let you slide in there, but no. And so they were already, because I was a teacher, was already like, oh, you're supposed to have gone to law school. You wasting your potential. So they were already not happy about it. So they like pressured me into getting my master's, well, at least become a principal. And so I got my master's only for it to be $52,000 of
Right.
money, you know, because I didn't want to be anybody's principal, but I wanted to get them off my back. So now I have, you know, I had that loan on my back instead. But the Budgetnista, it wasn't, I mean, for the longest, they didn't really get it. First of all, my dad calls it the Budgetnista. I'm like, bruh, the word budget exists. It literally exists. Like it's there in the lexicon. Just put budget and nista. So you get
The G is silent.
You know, she does the Budgetnista. Like, so I would say it didn't really hit them that it was serious. I was actually doing something, because my dad every year would ask me, have you made 100K? And I'd be like, no. He'd be like, oh, get a job.
Wow.
You know, so every year, so like, and I would say, I want to say I made my first 6 figures, maybe 5 or year 6 in. And he was like, oh, okay. But still was kind of like, yeah, because 100K in business is like $35,000 take home. Because, you know, you got to pay for things.
Right.
So he was kind of like, yeah, I guess, you know. And then I paid off their house, and he was like, oh, the Budgetnista is my doctor. I'm like, oh,
right.
Now you flexing at the functions with the Budgetnista. So, and I paid off their house, I want to say 3 years ago.
Oh, nice.
And
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
Thank you. It was like such a blessing because, you know, because parents, they work so hard.
Right.
You know, to make sure, and I'm one of 5 girls, so you can only imagine with 5 kids.
Oh, wow.
The financial burden that was, and they put us all through school. And I remember, so they would have had their house paid off, but they pulled money out to send the baby to school.
Wow.
Yeah.
So my mom, she just kept saying she wanted to retire early. She was still in her early 60s, and normally, you know, retirement age for you to get all your money, you have to be like 64, 65.
Yeah.
But she was tired. She was a nurse. And she's like, I'm tired. Like, I don't want to wait another 2 years. And I heard her talking about it. And I was like, well, what's keeping you from retiring early? She's like, well, we need the money to pay the mortgage. I was like, well, how much is the mortgage? And I was like, well, if the mortgage was paid for, would you, with the money that you guys do have coming in from like Social Security, my dad is older than my mom, and all these other things coming in, would it be enough money coming in to manage your life? And they were like, yeah. And I said, okay. So I spoke to my husband. He was like, hell yeah, because his mother passed away when he was in his 20s. He's like, I wish she was here so I could do this for her.
Wow.
And he's like, let's do it. It's $120,000.
That's it.
One check. My dad didn't believe, because, you know, up until that, like,
you're the Budgetnista.
Yeah. And also, 2 out of my 4 sisters, I was the least serious. I was like kind of like the wild one. You know, like I used to sneak out of the house, although to this day, they don't know because I was good. Steal the car, all of that. I was like, if they don't listen to podcasts. I'm like, Al, if you my auntie, don't tell them.
I gotta ask. I don't want to, you know, don't want to say your sisters, but are they all drug dealers right now?
Yeah, so the oldest is a scientist. So they were like, okay, we'll let that slide. And she married a doctor. They were like, okay, you know.
She's a fancy drug dealer.
I know. So then there's me, I'm second. And then right below me, Tracy, she was a financial analyst. So they were like, okay, that's cute. And so, and then Carol is an engineer. So they're like, and she married a doctor. They're like,
okay.
Double boom.
Then the baby, you already know, babies be just useless. Lisa's like, I just be living. I'm like, we still don't know what Lisa do. But she's the smartest. I always say, like, the baby be the smartest out of everybody, but not applying none of that intelligence to, like, what are we doing with life right now? So she's a I guess you could say she's a full-time writer. I mean, that's what she's doing this week. So
Drug dealer
this week.
Exactly. But yeah, no, honestly, my parents, because especially in African households, not having a son sometimes can be cause for shame, you know, because it's a very male dominant, like, oh, the man is the head, you know. Yeah. So his friends used to tease him, and he's always like, guess who's laughing now? Because girls take care of their family. Okay.
Right.
That's true.
And so my father, he is, because we're all tall, but my father is like 5'5", even though you ask him, I'm 5'6". I'm like 5'4". But he has his 5 girls, and we make sure that he is all the way good. House paid off. We send him allowance, him and my mom allowance every month.
I'm loving that.
Yes, like we get their house cleaned. We send them. I have a cook that comes to their house every Sunday that makes meals for them. Like, they're like, oh, how your boys doing? Oh, they're successful in the world, but they don't come see you. Oh, okay, my girls see me every week.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
This is what all parents dream of.
Yeah.
All
yes.
do this.
But you have to, you know what? You have to, as a parent, you have to infuse that into your child. It was always the expectation, because I saw them taking care of my grandparents in Nigeria, like sending them money, making sure that they were good. And my parents would always say that that is your job as a child, to make sure that, you know, your siblings are good, but also to make sure that your parents are good. So my sisters and I take that very seriously.
Did you go to school for education, or did you go for finance, accounting at any point?
So my father was a CFO and then an accountant, and he had his bachelor's in economics and his master's in finance. So we learned about money at home. We would literally have money lessons on like Thursday nights. Like, this is how you budget. This is how you save. Ain't no sweet 16. At 16, I walk you to the bank and you open your first bank account.
Wow. So at what age did he start this? Was there like, all right, you're 10 now, we got to start talking money?
4.
Wow. 4.
But in a way that's age appropriate. So for example, when I was 4, I was like obsessed with running water. And he was like, how are we going to get this girl to stop? Like, I would turn the water on in the kitchen, you know, the bathroom. And so he was like, okay, I know exactly what to do. Like, I also was obsessed with ice cream, like most little kids, but we didn't have a ton of money. So once a week, like, it was like Wednesdays was ice cream day during the summer, but we would rotate whose day it was. Like, you know, Karen is first because she's the oldest, then me, then Tracy, then Carol, then Lisa. And so it was my week to get ice cream. And so when the ice cream truck came around, you could go inside and get $1, and the rest of the sisters had to go in the freezer and get like ice cream. So we all got ice cream, but you know, ice cream from the ice cream truck just be tasting a little better. You know, it hit different.
It hit different. It hit different. It did.
So I went inside to get my $1, and my dad was like, ooh, here's the thing. The waterman just came by. Ooh. I didn't have no money on me. Wow. I had to give him your ice cream day $1. I was like,
oh, did that again, I bet.
What? Apparently, I don't even remember. Apparently, I fell out. Was like, are you kidding me?
You had to wait 5 weeks.
Girl, can you imagine? Like, and by then, summertime over, I was like, wait.
Oh no.
What do you mean?
5 weeks is an eternity to a 4-year-old.
I mean, and so it was such a really great lesson about like what, like, money is attached to things that you care about. Right. You have to make a choice. You want water, you want ice cream. What's more important to you? I was like, well, ice cream, duh. So, but I never ran that water again. Right. So yeah, so you can really start teaching your children about money as early as that, because usually around 3 or 4, they start to say, mommy, daddy, auntie, uncle, can you buy me? Not just can I have, but if they say buy me, that means that they've already made a connection that you're spending money to get things.
Now, I mean, yeah, like water or ice cream could be like a whole nother book.
Yeah, it's in the book. It's in my new book. My new New York Times best-selling book.
You better. Okay. You better. Okay. Yes, let these people know what time it is.
This dopeness.
So, you know, just try to get a better understanding of what happens with the entrepreneur side of life in terms of 401ks.
Yeah.
And understanding what that is. Like, how would you suggest a entrepreneur would budget for something like that?
So if you're an entrepreneur, you have some choices about what types of accounts you can open. So if you're an entrepreneur, you're not working for a company. So a 401k is a retirement plan that's extended to you from your company. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean that you don't get a retirement plan. You can do something called like a SEP IRA. You can do a Roth IRA. You could do a traditional IRA. So a traditional IRA works like this, which I don't really suggest, but the way it works is that it helps to lower your tax burden now. Mm-hmm. And then, so you don't pay taxes, you don't pay taxes now, but when you pull it out during retirement, you pay taxes then. A Roth IRA is the opposite. You pay taxes now, and then when you pull it out, you don't pay taxes on the growth and what's left in there. So it's like with IRAs, you get to decide, do I want to pay my taxes up front? Do I want to pay my taxes on the back end? And if you're self-employed, truly self-employed, you can consider something called a SEP, which is it's a self-employment, like retirement account. And what's so special about it is they usually let you put more money in it because they understand as a self-employed person that you likely need to put a little bit more money up. So there are places like Vanguard, Fidelity, Charles Schwab. You can say, hey, I want to open up a retirement account. I'm self-employed. Now, the key is you want to be mindful because some people think they're self-employed and they're not. So I made this mistake. When I first started the Budgetnista, I indeed was self-employed. But then I switched my company from being just a solo LLC to something called an S Corp, to a corporation. So I officially then became an employee of my company. But it was just me. So I was like, I still felt like, oh, I'm self-employed. So I was still contributing to my self-employment retirement account. And you're not allowed to, because I'm no longer self-employed. I'm an employee now. And I was like, oh, snap. So yeah, that was a whole mess. So especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to want to likely sit down and talk to a certified financial planner so you can decide, where do I want to put my money? Because a certified financial planner can also help you determine for your company what's the best retirement options you have for your company. It's not the kind of thing you want to guess, like me putting all this money into the wrong account when I first started.
So did you lose that? Because I think some people start off, they might have one place here, but then as you grew, you changed into an S Corp. So what happens? Is it transferable?
Well, you have to pull it out, pay taxes on it. Take that hit and then put it back less. So I was like, damn. But here's the thing that I wish I would have known when I first started. Everybody, when they first start, number one person they want to hire is an admin. I need an admin. You don't need an admin. You need an email address called contact at ... and you be your own admin. Like even now, y'all email somebody probably called Michelle. Ain't no Michelle. I used to be Michelle.
Michelle is my go-to too.
Yes, that's such a good name, right? And so when I first started, I was like, Michelle says Tiffany is not available. Because so now whenever I have, because my real admin's name right now, her name is Candace. But with any admin that I have now, they assume the name Michelle because there's people who's been working with me for years. They're like, Michelle been with you for years, girl. I'm like, girl, it has been Leah, it has been Sylvia. Yep. It's like the DMX song, right? Yeah. Brenda, Letitia.
Dawn, LaShawn, Inez, and Felicia. Yeah.
They were all Michelle.
Exactly. The number one person that you should get as soon as you have a little bit of money is a financial person, whether it's a bookkeeper, whether it's an accountant, whether it's like a controller, whether it's a CFO. You want someone who is going to be looking at your money flow in and out, someone who's going to be like, you still getting paid via Cash App? Ma'am, open up a bank account, So because if not, they're literally like, from 10 years ago, the way that I was navigating in business, we are still undoing some of those tax mistakes to this day because of the way I was navigating. So I tell all my mentees, if they're just starting off now, 1, have separate bank accounts. 2, make sure you're fully registered in business. And 3, stay on top of your taxes, because it was like we were a C Corp, then an S Corp, then it's such a mess that we're finally unraveling. It's like when you have a necklace and you get like that knot in it and you work on that knot for months with the safety pin, and we're finally unraveling. And so we wouldn't have to do all that if we would have done it right the first time. And you could do it right the first time if you have assistance.
I'm gonna just ask, what's wrong with Cash App?
Well, because here's the thing, you have to ask yourself, like the federal government is looking at money in, money out. You know what I mean? So they want to see officially, this is your business. Like, because Cash App really is not attached to there are some things like Zelle is attached to businesses, but Cash App, Venmo, those are typically not business accounts. PayPal is fine,
Okay.
But so you want to just be mindful, because receiving money for business on a non-business, platform, and because ultimately, if you're making a lot of money, they're like, well, where's that money going? We don't see it landing in your bank account. The government is always looking for, where's my cut?
Yes.
And so having people pay you to this one account, because you're going to want to do like what they call a profit and loss statement every month. How much did I make every month? How much did I spend every month? The profit is what I made, loss is what I spent, and then what's left over. And so it's hard to do that if you have money going in and zipping, zagging everywhere. But yeah, the financial component to business is usually the number one reason why businesses don't survive, because you can make the most amazing cakes. You can you could be the most amazing, dancer. But if your finances are messed up, that business can really crash and burn, even though you had all the talent.
Because we hear this conversation a lot on Twitter about the LLC.
Yeah, Lord have mercy.
Exactly. So my question to you is, because you mentioned that you had to pretty much graduate from LLC to S Corp. Can you tell us exactly what the difference is between the two, where S Corp, you're paying yourself from your company as opposed to LLC?
So with the S Corp, you're still an LLC. So LLC, it's really sole proprietorship or partnership, right? So that's like the first beginning. So in the beginning, if it's just you, you're a sole proprietor, Or if you have a business partner, you're likely a partnership, but you're still an LLC, right? And then the next level up, oftentimes it's an S corp. So the way it works with an LLC is that it passes through, meaning my company makes $100,000 great a year. Let's just pretend it makes more than that, but let's just pretend it makes $100,000. And I say, okay, all my expenses cost me $50,000. There's $50,000 left over, but I don't want to pull it all out because I want to save. Of the 50, I'm only going to take 25. The government says with LLCs, remember a sole proprietorship, a partnership, and an S corp, these are all LLCs. The government says, I don't care that you save money. All of that money saved or received to you is your responsibility for taxes. Yeah. So even that 25,000 that's still in the company, if it's not spent, it's taxed. Now you can have your company pay the taxes on your behalf, but you have to just understand. So an LLC is a pass-through when it comes to your taxes, that all monies are your personal responsibility as the owner, right? So that's what happens when you have a sole proprietorship, partnership, and then an S corp. An S corp, you do become an actual employee of the company, but you still are responsible on the back end. So your company can literally make, $10 million, spend only 5 of it, and $5 million you owe taxes on that 5 million. But like I said, usually what you'll do is like, you'll say, what money did I not receive? The company, hey, can you pay this on my behalf? And then what I did receive, that's what I do. I pay on like what I owe, I pay. And you really want to pay quarterly. When you just have a sole proprietorship or like a partnership, and you're making, I would say, under $100,000 a year, they don't typically demand that you pay quarterly. But once you start making over 6 figures, you might want to consider jumping up to S corp. We're still passed through, but you're going to be paying quarterly. And it usually there's like, you don't have to pay what's called self-employment tax. So, because if you're making 6 figures, self-employment tax, last time I checked, it might be like 30%. So you don't want, it's like extra heavy on the tax side if you don't switch to like S corp. So I'm S corp right now with one of my companies. And then C corp is like what Jeff Bezos and them are. Because can you imagine, he makes $10 trillion and he spends only half of that. Now he's responsible for $5 trillion in taxes? No. So instead, with the C corp, it's not passed through. That's what these big, huge corporations are like. It's like you just pay. You're just you're like a real employee. Are you an owner? Yes, but you're like an employee. That money doesn't pass through. Whatever money is saved in the company, you're not responsible for it personally. So there are tax advantages at the partnership, sole proprietor level, tax advantages at the S corp level, tax advantages at the C corp level. That's why it's so important to have a financial person that you could, they don't have to be like on staff where you're paying them an annual salary, but it might be that you sit down with them once a year and you pay like, $200-300 to understand, should I, because I remember when I started, I'm like, okay, this is fine, sole proprietor. Oh, we made, $150,000 5 years in. Okay, dang, we should start talking about you being an S corp, Tiffany. What's that? That means XYZ. Okay, well, dang, you're making even more. Because at one point it was like, got to be one of my company was making so much that it was like the pass-through was like, girl, it's looking like you made $2 million personally, but we didn't because we kept so much in the company to build it. Wow. I was like, I made $2 million. They're like, that's what it says on your tax return, And so I was like, okay, maybe this company, it's time to turn this into a C corp because the tax benefits are better for me as a C corp in this way. But you shouldn't be figuring that on your own. An accountant is going to help you make those decisions. But business is, I'm telling you, like the real like tea about business. It's not the thing itself. Like I can teach you how to budget, save, credit. That's easy. Like if you were like, boom, Tiffany, I need you to do a 45-minute class right now about credit. I could do that with my eyes closed, no notes. Your gift that's your gift. But the business behind the scenes, I didn't know how to do that. Like now, like for example, most businesses in the beginning, they hire contractors. Contractors are people that, they're supposed to just work a project at a time. They can come and go as they please, and you should not be their only person, But businesses don't be doing that. You be having all these contractors treating them like employees, and then you could really get in trouble because if you do that, you're not paying employee tax, you're not paying taxes for them. Like, because when someone's an employee, there's all this back end stuff that you have to pay for them. You know, you have to provide them, if they're full time, with some sort of like health insurance in some sort of way. You have to provide all these things and pay employee tax on them. And so like that switch over, like now we have 19 employees, and I want to say 15 or 16 of them are full time. But that was a big lift.
Yeah.
Because like just the health insurance alone for us is $250,000 a year. That's what I have to pay for these employees, you know? And so it's not, but business is something that you slowly grow. You know, you do better, but you have to be open to learning and shifting and asking questions and putting the right people in. Like, well, what does that look like now? Or you can't be having 20 contractors. That's a red flag. Like, oh, you trying not to pay no employees. Okay. Like, there's so much that goes into business, and I'm just like, I'm 13 years in and I'm still learning, you know? Yeah.
I mean, to take it back, I think there was a point in time where when you started off, it was kind of just talking to friends about their budgets and then kind of expanding. What was it like crossing over from going to these individuals to speaking to corporations and having whole trainings? What was that transition like for you early on?
It wasn't, because I taught for so long in the classroom, I don't think people realize ain't nothing scarier than teaching 3 and 4 year olds, because they're like, I'm sorry, I'm about to tear this classroom up. Yeah. Be entertaining. You got 2 minutes, girl. You're like, A, B. Like, so a lot of the fear, excuse me, a lot of the fear of standing in front of people, I overcame being a teacher for so long. But it was the financial component, like, okay, because I knew what I needed help with and what I learned, you know, at home and just through my own trial and error, and then kind of like my friends, but then trying to figure out like, okay, in general, I started to get a better understanding. Like when people are in college, biggest struggle is this. People in their 20s, biggest struggle is this. So that took me like practicing to figure out, depending on like the demographic I was speaking to, what they were likely going to be struggling with, and leaning into that. But I honestly heavily into my years as a teacher to be able to tell when the audience is engaged, to be able to tell when they don't understand. Like, you know, a good teacher be looking like, oh, look, they fidgeting. They don't get what I'm saying. You know, let me say it again and let me re-explain it. And so I honestly like it. Being a teacher for 10 years was the best gift I could have given myself for the line of work I'm in now, because it really prepared me to teach just across the board. So that transition, it wasn't as difficult because I had so many years standing in front of the classroom. It was just more so feeling like imposter syndrome. Because, you know, you're talking to Amex and JetBlue, and they all fancy. And I'm like, I'm a preschool teacher from Newark, you know? You know, so I was like, oh, what if they find out? But now I'm like, you know, I've had so many years in, and I know that I prepare, like, you know, I'm not just standing up here just winging it, that like I prepare weeks in advance. And so now I'm more confident in my ability, you know, to show up and show out. But in the beginning, certainly it was more so like this corporate environment. I'm not used to it.
And I mean, now do you only deal with corporations? Can people still reach out to you directly, whether it's from a celebrity status level, athletes, or are you strictly with corporations at this point?
So I'm like, what's going on? I just had my COVID shot yesterday. I'm like, I don't have COVID. So
first time, my second one.
I know, my second one. I had my second one yesterday. No, so I don't do one-on-ones unless it's friends. Like, you know, like sometimes my friends be like, hey, Tiffany. I'm like, girl, you don't listen anyhow, but come on over to the house. But I have an online school called the Literature Academy. So if you're wanting like that guidance, you know, we have that there. I have a bunch of like free challenges that people can take online called the Literature Challenges. You know, I've got my new book, Get Good with Money. So for individual people, I have resources for them. But mostly for me, like, so I've got 3 core businesses. Well, really 4, because I have a podcast called Brown Ambition. That's a business. But I also have my online school, Literature Academy. That is like the business of, you want to learn how to take your finances to the next level. It's not just me. Here are these other amazing experts and teachers who are going to help you. Then there's the original business, the Budgetnista. And so that's like the business of Tiffany, me. That's speaking, corporate engagements, that's spokesperson work, that's books, you know. And then I have a marketing business, which we're shutting down actually at the end of this year. But whenever organizations wanted to come to us for us to market their stuff to our audience, we would use that business. But so, yeah, so I mean, I work with no one gets turned away. That was always my thing, that like, there is a resource for you. Although I personally cannot sit down one-on-one with folks. I mean, every once in a while, somebody will hit me up and, it's like really bad. And I'm like, oh, girl, just call me. But for the most part, I usually find resources because I also am really good. I'm a really good connector. So you might email me and be like, oh my gosh, Tiffany, no one has worse credit than me. I don't know what to do. So then I'm like, well, here's a free resource that we have for this, or here's an organization I recommend, or here's a financial friend of mine. This is what she does. So we will place you, even if it's not with us, if you're needing assistance.
I just have to say that I love your shirt. And actually, the collaborator of that shirt was actually one of our first guests.
Oh, really, Kalila? So I am wearing, yes, Mess in a Bottle. I love Kalila Wright from Mess in a Bottle. And I forget how we connected. I just thought that she was just a dope Black girl doing dope Black girl things. And so I reached out to her. I was like, I love everything you're doing. And I've seen her at Essence Fest and other places selling Mess in a Bottle. And she was like, we should do a collab. I was like, hell yeah. So we did. And so my shirt says financial wholeness is a form of self-care. Yes. And financial wholeness is basically your financial foundation. There's these 10 components. It's budgeting, savings, debt, credit, learning to earn, investing, insurance, net worth, your money team, and estate planning. Come on, Tiff. I'm like, of course I wasn't coughing all day until now. And so that's what financial wholeness is. And so that's what I wrote, Get Good with Money, my book. I said, that's what's missing, that you can see. You could read a book about credit or about budgeting. I've written those books, but there wasn't kind of this guide, start here, navigate your way through, and end here. And so that's what I wanted to write. It's the subtitle of Get Good with Money is 10 simple steps to becoming financially whole. Because I saw people were racing toward financial freedom, including myself, until I achieved financial freedom. Like right now, if I didn't want to work anymore, I don't have to. But I was still a whole mess. I was underinsured. I didn't have an estate plan. So I said, well, dang, is financial freedom all that it's cracked up to be? Because Prince was financially free, but he didn't have a will. And when he passed away, same thing with Biggie. He didn't have a will.
It's crazy.
And I was like, so financial freedom is not enough. We're missing a holistic view of our money. And so that's when I came up with financial wholeness. There are 10 components. So it's not just having this pile of money. It's are you properly insured? Do you know how to earn? Are you invested for wealth and retirement? Do you have a credit? Is your credit score decent? And so, that's my aim, is to get us to a space and place of financial wholeness.
Yeah. And those conversations about those safety nets don't come up often enough, especially in our community.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. They don't. And so I want to normalize it. Yeah. I have, so I would say Beyonce has the Beehive, but we have dream catchers. There's about 1 million dream catchers worldwide. It's mostly Black women. And the way we talk about money, we just have normalized it. We have this Facebook group called Dream Catchers Live Richer with the Budgetnista. And there's 500,000 of us in there. Talking about money the way you talk about groceries.
Nice.
And I've done it on purpose because, we work best in community. And I wanted you to see, sis, there's no question that you can ask that someone else has not been through and probably solved it. And it's going to help you now in the comments. Yeah. So I think that that's important for people to know that they're not alone, for you to have access to experts, and for you to have access to knowledge.
So it definitely sounds like our listeners all need to firstly go get your books, read it,
first and
understand
foremost.
it, right? And I think from a quick note, I'm just gonna put it out there. So me myself, I've always felt like you can't necessarily save until certain debts are paid off, right? Because I think the interests kind of fight each other, right? Certain credits, the interest is going to be higher. What's your typical approach and thought on that, just in regards to debt versus
savings, right? So on paper, you're right in that. Let's just say your savings account is making you 1%. And your credit card debt is costing you 20%. It makes sense to say, well, I'm not going to save. I'm going to pay off this credit card debt. But the thing is, your savings account is your first line of defense. And so if you don't have anything saved and the hot water heater goes down, the carburetor goes out, what you gonna do? You're gonna swipe your credit card, and now you owe even more on the expensive look, you know? That's why. So I tell people that you should be saving and paying off debt at the same time. The savings is not about earning interest. It's so you have that first line of defense. It's like savings is like, you know, the lock on your screen door. Yes. You know, like, so like somebody comes in, they're like, they may or may not, then they might break through that. And now they're at the regular door, you know, but at least give us some trouble. So I tell people you should have, you should make savings a priority, even if you have expensive debt, because when you have savings, because when you have an emergency, if you use your credit card, you're taking out a loan. I much rather you take out a loan from yourself and it's interest free.
Pay yourself back.
Yeah. Exactly. You know, so that's what I say, that like I wouldn't wait until I had like my credit card debt was paid off until I started saving, because you might need it for something, and I'd rather you borrow it from yourself.
Is it still true that people should have 6 months saved away, or is that number changed over time in 2021?
I say it depends. So at bare minimum, 3 months of your expenses, and then you look at your industry.
Okay.
So my mom, when she was still working, she was a nurse. 3 months is plenty, because like they needed nurses back then. Imagine now, ain't no nurse going without work.
True.
You know what I mean? So like, what you need 6 months for? Like literally any nurse, it's like, oh, they're like, literally, they was calling her like, you want to come out of retirement? She's like, no, you know, so 3 months is plenty for a nurse. My sister, it was an engineer. It took her almost 6 months to a year almost to find her first job. She might need 6 to 12 months worth of saving. Wow. Because of her one, she's a Black woman and mechanical engineer. They're like, who, what? She was like the only Black woman, really, I think woman even who graduated in her class when she graduated. Crazy. And so it was harder for her to find a job. So she needs more savings. So you have to minimum my 3 months. Let me look at my industry. How long do I think it would take me to replace my income? And that's where I want to get the money to.
Nice.
So we hear all the crypto talk. We hear all the stock talk, Dogecoin and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. When is the best time when is the best time to budget in something like that, where you're putting aside a certain set amount of money in order to invest in crypto, or if you want to invest in stocks?
So first things first, I want you to say, 1, do I have a budget? Check. All right. 2, you don't have to be debt free, but do I have a plan that's paying down my debt? Check. Okay, great. Do I have a retirement account that I'm funding? Doesn't have to be fully funded, but funding, because there's 2 types of investment: investing for retirement, investing for wealth. Everybody want to invest for wealth, but when you invest for wealth, you can be a little risky, because you know whether or not you make wealth or not. Oh, okay. But retirement, what your old self in to eat? Yeah. You know, like I call my old self Wanda. Right. So like, because there is a study that came out that said people don't set aside for retirement because they feel disassociated from their older self. Like, you know, you look at your little self almost like another kid. You know, we don't see ourselves as young. We don't see ourselves as old. We see ourselves exactly as we are now. Right. I said, well, why not lean into it? Let me name my old self. My old lady name is Wanda, and Wanda is sassy. And she knows all your business. Like, oh, you got all these cars rolling up here, and that is not your natural hair, but okay. Right. You know, and so I think about Wanda when I'm making choices. And so before, Tiffany can always work, because I'm Tiffany now. I'm young enough to work. I could put in the work. Wanda's like, ain't nobody trying to work. I have to look after Wanda first. So do you have money that you're setting aside regularly for retirement? Because Wanda's not able to put in the work. You have that, then you can start looking at investing for wealth. Investing for retirement is to take care of your older self so you can maintain your current lifestyle. Mm-hmm. Investing for wealth is to increase your current lifestyle and leave a legacy, you know, but that's not first order of business, because if you do this and then you don't have this foundation, and then by the time you go to retire, cryptocurrency has fallen, then what you gonna do? Right. So you always, for me, people want to skip over the fundamentals, which is financial wholeness. You know, I get it. You know, people are like, oh, I made so much money. Okay. And that's good. But are you setting aside for the inevitability that you one day won't be working? It's almost like, you know, people so busy, you know, they want to buy Gucci. You ain't even take a shower yet. Right. Like, you know, you want to be fly on the outside.
I don't like Poochie. But you
right?
fine
I was
Gucci.
like, wait, you would be fine on the outside, but you stink. Come on now, let's take care of these basics. You know, because
Essentials.
right, because what I'm wanting is that you have such a strong foundation that you could build all this stuff on it, and it's not easily shaken. Because that's what you see when things like, you know, like the recessions happen. People who don't have those strong foundations, it's like a house of cards. Everything comes collapsing down. You got to start from scratch. But if you had a strong foundation and you're building wealth on that, you're likely to be able to keep it.
Right.
I mean, earlier we definitely kind of dove into what business owners could kind of do to invest for their future, et cetera.
Mhm.
But what about everyone in the corporations that do have the 401ks? What additional steps can they take to, whether it's doing those outside IRAs, et cetera, to build for that future, for that retirement?
So here's like it's like a seesaw. So I want you to ask yourself, does my job offer me a 401k? Great. Do they have a matching program? If they do, start there first. Get your free money. Right. So, because like something, the way a matching program works, it might be something like, if you put up to 5%, we'll put up to 5%. So if you put 2, they put 2. If you put 7, they put 5, because that's their max. Yeah. So at the very least, get your match. If they don't have a matching program, start with the Roth IRA first. Okay. A Roth IRA, that's the one that you put your money that has already been taxed into this account, and it gets to grow tax-free. And you don't, because you pay tax on the front end, when you go to withdraw it, when you're older, you don't have to pay tax on the back end. So max that out. If your 401k doesn't match, once you max it out, I think right now it's like $6,000 if you're under the age of 50. Once you've maxed it out, then go back to your 401k and start putting money there. Okay. Now, if your job says, we do match, like I said, get your match, then 401k, then your Roth IRA. Or Roth IRA, if your job doesn't match, and then back to 401k. So that's what it should look like if you are kind of like seesawing back and forth, because I want you to really work toward maxing out your taxable accounts, or your tax benefit, like your not taxable, your accounts that have tax benefits. So this is your retirement accounts, because here's why, like you are going to get, your money is going to go further, because when you're investing for wealth, these are typically just regular accounts. So they're taxed like regular accounts. Whereas with your retirement accounts, they give you a tax benefit either upfront or on the back end. So get your tax benefit. That means that's money you get to keep. Too many people jump into like, well, I'm just going to, start investing in Bitcoin. It's like, okay, well, one, did you know that if you invest in Bitcoin on Robinhood, you can't move that money?
Nope.
Like you can't. So I'm like, you use Robinhood? Okay,
I learned that this year filing my taxes.
Exactly. Like, no, Robinhood is like, nah, that stays with us, bro. Wow. It's like, so many people want to jump in, and I want people to get their money. And I'm so glad that what I'm seeing now is I've never seen more Black and brown people ever investing now than ever before, which I love. Yeah. But what I'm wanting is like, take those classes, take those lessons, listen to podcasts, and start to, one foot in front of the other. Don't be afraid to practice. There's a practice account called Sink or Swim. So this is what my stepdaughter, she's 14. So she practices investing with Sink or Swim. So that way, if whatever money is lost, it's not real money, but it navigates like real money in the market. So she can practice, because if she can learn to invest at 14, by 24, she will be wealthy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. And she has you helping her a little bit.
Yes. Well, she's a hustle girl. That girl is something else. I'm like, are you trying to give birth to you? Because she gets straight A's, got like 3 jobs. And like now she's like, so I told her, I said, Alyssa, all your money cannot go to Amazon. She said, but I love getting packages. I'm like, so do I. But, so I said to myself, how am I going to teach her like that money can do more? And I told her, I said, what if I told you there's a way to take the money you have and make even more? You don't even have to work. Like, she was like, how you do that? I said, it's called investing. Nice. And she was like, okay, tell me more. I said, for example, think about like in your closet, like is there anything like that all the kids are wearing or, doing right now? And she was like, well, the last time me and mommy went to the mall, like she had just got a pair of Crocs. She said, we had to wait in line for like an hour. Like literally the mall was empty, but the Crocs store had a line wrapped around.
I know what you're about to say.
Yes. And I said, okay. And so I said, like, let's see if Crocs has a stock symbol. And it does. So she looked, I think it's CROX. I think that's their stock symbol. And we looked to see whatever the price was. And I said, well, why do you think that Crocs is so popular now? And she was like, I don't know. They cute. I said, okay, let's look. And so we looked it up. It's because people are staying home now, more so than ever. So comfort had become like more important than wearing like your Jordans, you know, because all these kids are home and they're like, well, I'll wear my Crocs at home versus like, you know, I'm not going anywhere. And she's like, okay. And then what really excited her, here comes Nicki Minaj. After 2 months of being off social media, Nicki posts a picture with some pink Crocs on and like bedazzled with Chanel jewelry. Do you know, she sent me a screenshot. I don't know where she saw it in the news or whatever. Pink Croc sales jumped up 4,000%.
Yes.
And she was like, oh, I said, that's investing.
Yes.
You know, I said, what if we would have bought Crocs before, you know, Nicki had done that? I bet you would see the price, what it was 2 weeks ago when we first started looking to what it is now, would have gone up. And she was like, oh, I said, now trading is, we could have said we bought it. Let's just pretend Crocs was $20 after Nicki was 25. We could have bought it at 20 and then sold it at 25 and taken that money.
Yes.
Right.
And then reinvested it in something else. And so now she's excited. So now we're taking classes like together because she's starting to see like, wait, I could take my $100 and flip it into 150. Indeed, you can. So
that was me and my dad in the 90s. My dad was a day trader, and he was like, well, you like McDonald's, don't you? You know, there's billions of other people that do. So why don't you take some of that McDonald's money and invest? Till this day, I still have stock in McDonald's.
I love it. Do you trade now?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So that's what I'm hoping, that like, I want that she feels very comfortable, because especially women, especially Black women, you know, we have been kind of like ignored and pushed out of like the financial space. And we're told like, oh, it's too hard. You wouldn't like that. You know how like when you're eating something good and kids be looking, you're like, oh, you wouldn't like that. It's medicine. They're like, them look like, because I always tell this to my niece and nephew, they're like, those are not McDonald's, those are M&M's, auntie. I'm like, this is my medicine, right? I feel like that's how they do with like investing when it comes to like us, like, oh, you wouldn't like it. It's not even that good. Yeah. You know, and I'm like, no, I want to normalize. Like, no, you trade, you're 14. Okay. You know, now you got your money for graduation or money for Christmas or whatever. You can put half of it toward investing. And that way, because I want her to feel empowered, that she doesn't have to. That's what my dad did for me, that I didn't have to. He said, I want that whatever partner you choose it because that's where you want to be, not because that's where you have to be.
Right.
You know? And so like, and that's true. Like I'm with my husband because I love him. I don't need the, you know, like, I like my dad wanted me to marry like a doctor, lawyer. I told him, I said, 1, I make more than them. And 2, I'm my own doctor or lawyer.
Nice.
Boom.
You know, like I don't need, like what I'm needing is support and love and kindness. And what's so great is that if any moment, if I'm like, this ain't it, I'm all the way good because I could take care of myself financially. And so I feel like everybody should have that feeling, especially Black women.
Yeah. I mean, even with the stocks, it's come to a point where I'll never forget, like a couple months ago, somebody's trying to argue me down, like, there are no opportunities for Black people to excel, because, you know, they're all thinking about, you know, when we go for business loans and when we go, you know, trying to do certain things to invest, we're turned away because of race. I'm like, this stocks literally,
they don't care.
They don't know what you look like.
Yep.
They don't know your age.
Yep.
That's why it's important for us to, at the very least, have knowledge of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's true. Because you're right. It is a space and a place where you could be secretly, like I have a friend of mine who is in her early 30s, and this year alone, she's set to make $10 million in trading.
Wow.
Because she's got $7 million in her account and she trades actively. She said, I make about $1 million a month, give or take. Wow. And so in her 30s, because she said when she was 17 or 18, Apple had come out and she heard about it at school. And she told her grandmother, I want to buy Apple. I heard about it. They couldn't figure it out and nobody would tell them.
Oh no.
And she felt like it just stuck with her. Like, can you imagine if she would have like just $100 or $1,000 could have totally transformed her life? And she said it stuck with her, how nobody would explain, nobody would teach. So she said in her 20s, when she graduated college, she made 10 years of study. Like, I'm going to learn how to trade. Wow. And so she did. So by the time she got to her 30s, she was a master at trading. And now she teaches people how to do so. And when she told me like, yeah, I think I'm gonna probably gross like, you know, around 10, maybe a little bit more this year in trading. I was like, what? How? She was like, yeah, about $1 million a month. I was like, well, what kind of money do you have put up to make $1 million? She's like, 7 million. And that's what I mean. You know what I mean? Like, how dope is that? Like, she's made her own fortune, her own luck. She doesn't have to work for anybody. And I just think that we all have that opportunity, but it's 3 things. You know, it's like why I do the Budgetnista. It's knowledge, it's access, it's community.
Mm,
Knowledge, when you know better, you do better. Classes, like I
yes.
said, books, webinars, whatever that looks like. Access comes through people. Like there's some people, basically, you do have to get put on in some way because sometimes someone has to explain to you exactly how to do something. That's why networking is so key. But sometimes people are just people that you meet on social media. There's a lot of people who are teaching courses like we are, you know, and then community. I think people, especially people of color, work best in community because it normalizes the process. It holds you accountable, and you know you can celebrate your wins and commiserate your downsides. You know, like when you are working within a community. And so knowledge, access, and community. That's what we do at the Budgetnista. I just think that the sky's really the limit. I think that 2020 and 2021 has really opened up our minds to be like, oh wait, we could grow some real wealth out here. Yeah. Okay, I ain't got to wait on nobody. I could do this.
I do have a question for you in regards to just the word Budgetnista, and really more so in people, the misconception that budgeting can mean that someone's frugal, right? Or just call it what it is, cheap, right? How do you feel about that? Like, do you feel that just because someone has a budget, like they have to drive a Honda, et cetera? Where do people kind of draw up those lines? And whether it's a business owner or just an individual that's working towards goals?
So I like to think of a budget not as restrictive, but it's my say yes plan. My budget is there to say yes to me. So I look at it, and now it might say, so I think about a budget like your Black mama, right? Like, Ma, I can go outside, yes, when you do your homework.
Right.
Ma, I can have dessert, yes, if you eat your dinner. So your budget is not there to restrict you, but to say yes in a way that you can maintain. Nice. Yes, if, yes, or, yes, when, yes, and. You know, and so like my budget is my say yes plan. And, you know, because people were like, I mean, still to this day, some of my friends, I'm like, they still be teasing me like, oh, you so cheap, Tiffany. I'm like, all right, you know, this house is paid for.
Right.
We paid in cash, and we renovated it in cash, and we paid off my parents' house in cash, and that $52,000 student loan debt gone. I wrote one check for that. And our second property that we purchased is being renovated now. We paid for it in cash and renovated in cash. We're not cheap. I just navigate my money to what's important to me. You know, like so many people are using their money in a way that's in alignment with someone else's idea of the ideal life.
There you go.
You know, like I have my friend. I remember one time one of my mentees, she had come to Newark because she was taping something in the city. And she's like, oh, you know, can you pick me up from the airport? I'd love to hang out. I said, sure. So I've got a 2015 Lincoln MKZ. It's cute. I like my car. And I picked her up and she was like, you so humble. I was like, you trying to play me, girl? First of all, here's the thing.
Lincoln's American luxury.
Yeah, I like my car but who my car, you know, like my car is clean, it's paid off, it's cute. And I was like, sis, I just bought like a sleep number bed just yesterday for $8,000. And I was like, it's nothing. My mom told me the deck in the backyard, you know, we need to replace it because the snow rotted it out. I said, how much is it going to be? She said $12,000. I said, okay, I'll send it to you. So like, I don't need, like my Lincoln MKZ is humble, sis, I got it. But I don't have to use it the way you think I ought to use it. Yeah. You know, I've gotten really good at using my money in a way that's in alignment with me. You know, like that's, you know, so I don't feel the need to like stunt on social media and it's not even that. Like, honestly, if you like Gucci, there's nothing wrong with that. But as long as you like Gucci,
yes,
you know, because my worry is that so many people are using their money for someone else's idea of more. You know, like, oh, I want to live more of a life. I said, well, what really is more of a life? Like the lesson, I learned this lesson back like in my 20s when I used to go to brunch all the time with a bunch of girlfriends. And I wasn't really like a brunch person, but I felt like, well, everybody goes to brunch. And it was cost me like $50 a week, you know? And I was like, then I remember thinking, I have not been on vacation in so long. I'm a teacher. I have the summer off. I don't have no money for vacation. Just sitting at home for 2 months, you know?
$50 brunches every week.
Yes. And so I realized I started to add up, boom, 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 boom. I said, damn, because 50, that's $200 a month times think about 5 months. I'm like, oh, hell no. So I stopped going to brunch and my friends would tease me that I was so cheap, but I would put the $50, I was putting it in a savings account. And then I remember I had on my bucket list, I've always wanted to ride in a hot air balloon. And I found out the hot air balloon capital of the world is Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Yes.
And in October, they have this big, huge festival, and it's like the sky. I was like, bet my birthday's in October. My girlfriend called me, was like, girl, we about to have brunch tomorrow, but I know you're cheap behind. It's not trying to come. I said, actually, sis, I'm in the hot air balloon. We about to take off. Can I call you back? She was like, in Newark? I'm like, no, in New Mexico. And she was like, wait, what? I said, this is where my brunch money goes. And she was like, well, I want to be in a hot air balloon. I said, I'll let you know how I did when I get back. So what I learned, though, is that I wasn't saying no to brunch. I was saying yes to hot air ballooning. I'm not saying no to brunch. I was saying yes to Morocco, yes to Madrid, yes
ice
to
cream
India.
Or water.
Yeah, ice cream or water. I was saying yes to ice cream. So that's what I'm wanting for people. I'm not here to choose or decide where your money should go, but is your money actually going to what you actually value, or just what looks good for other people? I don't care what other people think. My family is good. A friend of mine was a single mother. She had an abusive partner and she needed help. I paid her rent for a year. So like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, to me, that's what I want, to have enough money that I can do that when somebody needs something. I want to be able to build hospitals in Nigeria. I want to be able to send young Black and brown kids to college if they want to here in the US. Like, for me, you know, like, I am very conscious that my money does what I want it to do. And so that's what I'm wanting. Like, if I wanted, like, you know, a Gucci purse or whatever, then I would get one. You know, it's just that for whatever reason, that doesn't move me. It doesn't mean it never will move me. But if I wanted one, I could get one, you know? So, but I just think that that's what I'm wanting for people, that, like, you know, what is it that, how you want your life to go? Align your money with that.
Now, one thing I want to talk about is just going on back to the big cars, because when we talk about different tax write-offs and benefits, what I've heard are that, for instance, like rappers, etc., they might just be purchasing bigger cars, whether it's a G-Wagon because it's 7,000 pounds. There's different tax benefits to that. Is that something that's true? Do people make these large purchases in some cases just because of the tax benefits, or?
There can be some tremendous tax benefits, like, right, to write off. I mean, you want to be mindful because the IRS is looking for you to slip up, you know? So the way you use a car, so like, you can buy a car under your business, or sometimes if you use your car for business, you can still write off the expenses of your car for your business. Like the first car that I bought it under the business. Yeah. But what I didn't realize is that, like, that my insurance was going to be high because it was commercial insurance. Yes. And I was like, damn. And then what I didn't realize is that, like, my husband couldn't drive it because if he got pulled over or he got a ticket, I could really be in trouble. So it just got to be too much. And so I pulled it out of the business name, but I could still, because I used it largely for the business, I could still use some of the usage as tax write-off. So yes, oftentimes you can do that, but you want to be mindful. Honestly, that is really what the richest of the rich do. Okay. Most of the richest people, you know, at the end of the day, they make nothing. They made $1 billion. They spent $1 billion in business, and they're like, oh, I didn't make anything. My taxes are lower. No, for real, because my corporate tax rate, when I literally, so my business grossed just over $10 million last year. My corporate tax rate, I think, was 21%. My personal tax rate when I was a preschool teacher was 25%. How is preschool teacher Tiffany?
That's crazy. That's crazy. It's robbery.
It
Capitalism,
is.
y'all.
Yo, it's crazy. When I tell
Capitalism.
Crazy. It doesn't make sense that preschool teacher Tiffany making $39,000 a year, scraping by in Jersey, that her tax rate is higher than millionaire business owner Tiffany.
Crazy.
Yeah, but when you know those things, that's why I had to learn to adjust. Like, okay, well, one of the best ways to, you know, to grow wealth is through investing, but also through business ownership. Mm-hmm. You know, because you know, when you're on the other side, I feel like this country especially, they punish you with taxes if you are an employee, and if you are a business, because you help with the economy, they give you so many tax breaks. So I'm like, you know, we take as many tax breaks as we can in order to, you know, that's how you really grow wealth. We get to keep, like, even Alyssa, since she was 6 years old, she used to see me collecting my receipts. So that way, at the end of, you know, when I was paying my taxes, so much so, she asked me one day, why do you collect receipts? And I told her, I said, well, you know how, like, your daddy goes to work, they take something called taxes out. They use taxes to build your school, to fix the roads, things like that. And she's like, okay. I said, but he doesn't have a choice. Before he gets his money, they take the taxes out automatically. And she's like, all right. She said, they don't do that for you? I said, no. I get to tell them what my taxes are going to be. I make $100. I say, wait. I bought a computer for 50. They say, okay, pay taxes on the 50. I say, wait. I paid employees for 25. They say, okay, pay taxes on the 25. I say, wait. I have I rent out an office for 25. They say, oh, you don't owe any taxes because you didn't make no money. So I said, these receipts that I'm collecting prove my spending. One day she came home with all these receipts. I'm like, what is this? She was like, I asked my mom, my grandma, because she didn't get, it has to be my receipts, but she's like, oh, we paying the
us women, we love some receipts.
So yes, I was like, she was 6 years old with a book bag full of receipts. Like, we can write all this off, Tiffany, so we can keep all the money.
Yes.
But you see that kind of conversation that you have with kids, and that's why, I mean, she's got like 3 businesses going on right now. Good. You know, one of her businesses, she's showing all my business friends how to use TikTok. She's like, $15 an hour. Oh, yes.
Oh,
and she's like,
smart,
right?
Nice.
I love it.
I was like, that is smart. Yep. I'm telling you, she is like, but it's because I want to normalize ownership for her. I want to normalize, like, for me, like, we have someone who cleans our house. And I remember my husband was like, oh man, like, you know, for Alyssa, I don't want her to become spoiled. I'm like, no, she's going to become like, I want her to normalize Black girl luxury. Juliana comes every 2 weeks meanwhile, she hit me up on the ring because she's with her mother this week. And she was like, Tiffy, that's Juliana on the ring. I'm like, you seen her on the ring, nosy Rosie, what you want? Can you let her know if she could please change my sheets? I said, look at Alyssa's life. Black girl luxury. But I told her that costs money because we're all also very open with her about these things cost money. If you want this when you no longer live here, you're going to have to make enough to support that lifestyle. Right. Yes. We have a private cook because who doesn't cook? Me, unless you want salmon burgers every night. Right. Right. And so Nisha comes and cooks for us every 2 weeks. Can you tell Nisha I would like chicken fingers? I said, I'm not paying Nisha all that money for chicken fingers, girl. Go ahead and in the kitchen, make your own daggone chicken fingers. But I want her to normalize. Yes, I want her to normalize that, like, these are things that you can have as well, but she also sees how hard I work.
Yes.
You know, so I talk to her about business. When I get a check for speaking engagements, I let her open it. And then we talk about why it used to be 1,500 and now it's 40,000.
Yeah.
You know, like, how do I get there? And she sees, like, you know, that sometimes it's really late at night I'm working, or sometimes it's the weekend and I have to tape, and explaining to her. So she's like, okay, like, I understand that we get all these things, but it's a lot of work in order to maintain, to get those things. So for me, I want her to know you can have all the nice things that you want. Like, cause it's weird. Like, we don't really buy her, not me anyway. Like, I'm not like someone, I don't buy her material things, but instead our lifestyle, we just enhance it as we grow. So she can just see in general, isn't our lifestyle better? You know, like, you can set this up for yourself too, but that's why I really want her to learn to invest, because I want her to have agency over the money that comes into her life. Yeah. And I want her to be able, because she's very creative. I don't want her to think that she has to, like, work in corporate America in order to make good money just so she can have a nice house. I want her to be like, girl, you could sing, act, dance, save some of that money, invest it, live off some of that so you can still live this creative, free life and make your money over here. You know what I mean?
Right now. That's right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what you're doing right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Work as a DJ and take the money and invest in stocks and day trade.
Yes. I love that, because you ought to, like, I feel like, you know, we ought to practice lifestyle design. And I feel like we have it in our community, meaning instead of saying, what do you want to do or what do you want to make? How do you want to live? Right. You know, like, how do you want to live, and how do I set myself up for living in that way? Like, oh, okay, well, I want to be able to go on vacation, you know, every other month. Okay, what does that have to look like? Or I want to have a job that's super creative. What do I have to make to do that? You know, or I love teaching. Maybe you're like, you want a job and you know it doesn't pay much. Great. So what do you have to do, you know, to supplement that income over here? So to me, we should all be asking ourselves, yes, how do you want to live? And then align your finances accordingly.
Now, I did want to ask, in regards to just mortgages are typically a good debt to have, right?
Good debt.
Okay, there you go.
Let's let's
go into that. Like, right now, the housing market is very different. The pandemic has people definitely moving away from, if they were renting, now they're going into homes, etc. The market, there's not much inventory. Is it a good or bad time to buy a house right now and to take on any type of mortgage related debt?
I say this, that any time can be a good time to buy a house, but you just have to get a good deal. I'm not paying $200,000 over asking. Sorry.
There you
Because
go.
now I could see if it was like, oh, last year to this year, but last month to this month, ask yourself, is that house really worth $200,000 more? You are, to me, you're lining yourself up for a course correction. Because that's what happened. My first condo I bought 2006, right before the market crash. I bought it for 220. During the Great Recession, that wasn't so great. My house fell to 150. So here I was, I owe 220. They tell me it's 150. And do you know, to this day, I see your face, Olivia, like, damn, to this day. So I cyber stalk my house because it's been over. I lost that house when I'm 41 now. I lost that house when I was like 30. So over 10 years to this day, that house has never gotten back up to 220. Never.
Wow.
Yo, keep that. Yo, 10 plus years later. Yo,
crazy.
that's what I'm just trying to say. Like, y'all out here buying these houses at 200. Now, is it a great time to sell your house? Hell yeah. I had a friend whose house, it's a beautiful house because Newark has a lot of historic houses, but the neighborhood is hood. Let's just be, it's a number block. You already know. Right. And I'm like, bro, because he's like, I'm thinking of maybe selling. I said, don't think about it. Sell your house now, because in a normal market, ain't nobody trying to live in the hood right now. You know, and sure enough, his house is going for like, normally he bought it for 180. I think he just got an offer for 360.
Doubled up.
So I'm like, sell it.
Run.
You know, you know, because so I share that to say that, like, if you were able, because even when we were looking, because Newark has become like the new Brooklyn. So we bought this house maybe 3 years ago. And even then the market was crazy. Like, we would put an offer in and get outbid, put an offer in and get outbid because people can't afford Brooklyn anymore. Jersey City, who's not far from here, is also expensive. Hackensack is also too expensive. So Newark is so close to Manhattan. You're looking at like with no traffic, like a 20-minute drive on the train, a 15-minute, a train ride. It's closer. Newark is closer to Manhattan than Brooklyn is to Manhattan.
Yeah.
You know? And so people are like moving. Plus, so you get kind of like the suburban feel with parts of Newark, but then closer to the city. And so it was really expensive. And so, but this house, you know, despite the fact that the market was going crazy even then, this was a bank owned property. And so the house at the time, I think it was worth around, I want to say, I don't know, maybe 3 something, but the bank wanted at least 180 for it, but they wanted cash. Okay. So at the time, my husband and I, have we gotten married? I think I just got married, but we had lived together for like 3 years. We were living what I call the halfway hood. This half was hood. This half was downtown. And so, and people like, I remember I used to be doing all these webinars and stuff. And then one day I came outside and this girl was like, Budgetnista? Because she was like, I know she don't live here with me. I was like, girl, I'm just visiting my man, you know. Right. So, but our rent, $960. So I was literally right. So I was like, I told him this is strategic. We're gonna live here. We're gonna save, and we did. So like I was making good money as a budgetnista. We could have easily gotten a fancier apartment, but he said like he grew up in the projects his whole life, and then lived in housing as a kid. And he was just like, I want a house before I'm 40. I've never had a house. Yeah. So I was just like, okay. So then when this house came on the market, because we kept getting outbid for 2 years, we couldn't find a house. And so when this house came on the market in Forest Hills, which is the nicest section in Newark, and he was like, damn, you know, the bank wants 180, but they want cash. I'm like, do you not be looking at our savings account? And he was like, because we have an online only savings account separate from our regular bank on purpose. So that way we don't get distracted.
See it. Nice.
Yes. And so I said, we got the 180. He was like, we got 180.
Let's do it.
Yes. And so we put the bid in, crossed our fingers, and we got it. And then we put another 180 in renovations. Now this house is worth way into the 400s.
There you go.
You know? And so then the second property we got was bought from the city of Newark. It was a tax deed. So a tax lien is when someone has not paid their taxes. And so basically the city or whoever they owe is leaning on them, like, we're about to sell this property for what you owe us. We leaning on you. And if you could come up with the money by this time, then we'll let you have your property back. So tax lien is not as sure as a tax deed. A tax deed is when the city says, too late, oh well, so sad, too bad. I'm taking this property from you. We own the deed. And so the city of Newark, they had all these properties that they sold for $10,000. So we bought this property up, $10,000. And peep this tea. So I know. So
There
what
are
happened? Because
$10,000 houses.
yeah, no. Here's the thing. All of them were like literally. There probably were 30 houses on this list, and they all looked like they were either in the hood,
Yeah.
or they were so broken down. So there was the last house on the list. We were like, dang, it's really broken down. But I was like, this is in the Weequahic section of Newark. There used to be this project building in the Weequahic section called Seth Borden Project, which is really bad, but they've since closed it. New Jersey Transit bought this over 10 years ago. And I heard buzz that New Jersey Transit was going to build a train station. They are. So now they're building a train station 2 blocks from what was the hood.
Right.
So it's going to transform it. And then that train station is going to go directly to New York and Newark Airport. I said,
that's
so
money.
So we bought this house for $10,000 and we're renovating it now. And so we're going to rent it. But when the train is built, so it'll probably be built, they said, within the next 5 years. When the train is built, I'm going to consider, depending on how the neighborhood changes, I'm going to consider Airbnb, because people, you see what I mean? Because that money is like, you can make
fly right into Newark.
That's it. Yep. Like, I'm saying right here, like, because I have a friend who Airbnbs her house, and she was like, girl, I probably could get, say, $2,000 in rent. I make $5,000 to $8,000 a month with Airbnb.
Yeah.
So that's the plan. But you see, we were willing to live in the halfway hood for those 3 years so we could stack and make decisions based upon our desired outcome. And a lot of people are not willing, and I get it, because you want to live nice now.
Yeah.
But it's hard to me choosing your desired outcome. I want this. For me, I knew I wanted financial stability, and I wanted to grow wealth and generational wealth. So I had to ask myself, what does that look like? Does that look like spending up front? Or does that look like creating this business that can pay, learning to invest in a way that's sustainable, and then continuing to make choices that add to our bottom line while enjoying life? Like we're going to all next week, I've rented out a beach house and it was $4,000 and it was like, it's nothing. Okay.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't mean we don't enjoy, but it just means that within moderation, okay. So I'm always consciously thinking, to me, we're trying to decide whether or not the next house we live in, do we buy a bigger house in Jersey and rent this house out since it's paid off, or do we wait till Alyssa, because Alyssa's a freshman in high school, do we wait 3 years for her to go away to college, and then we get a beautiful big old farm in North Carolina or something like that? And so, because I can work anywhere in the world,
Yeah.
Even my husband, people think we're crazy because at his job, he's a super for the city of Newark. He doesn't even make 6 figures. And they're like, yo, why don't he just retire? I'm like, his insurance is A++. I mean, you could get acupuncture. You could get, we've been trying to have, for real, when I tell you, I mean, literally, he and I have been trying to have a baby, and we use something called IVF. IVF is so
very expensive.
Super expensive.
One round might cost you $20,000.
Crazy.
And so, we've been doing IVF for 3 years. We probably have spent $300,000 of insurance money.
Oh, wow.
No money. I pay a $10 copay when I see the doctor.
Wow.
A $10 copay. I probably have paid $100
Yes.
on $300,000. So when people
There's so much value in that job, in that situation.
Yes. So people be like, oh, you wild. He doesn't make that much. I'm like, what? He's bringing what he brings to the table in insurance is what I bring to the table in coin.
Come on.
Right. So we're both, he's 40, I'm 41. So he gets to retire at 45, and we get to take that insurance with us.
Yeah.
So
run.
Nice.
Yes.
4 years. And that's it. Yo,
that's it. So I bring the coin, boo boo. You bring the insurance. We good. So but you see, all that kind of I think, but you have to be intentional. What's the desired outcome? What do you need to get there? And try not to get distracted by the shiny things. What is it that you want? Right. And align your money with your values. And so that's what we try to do. And that's why I share that, because I know so many women, they'll be like, girl, I could never date nobody who makes less than me. And I said, honestly, you'd be hard pressed to find a man that makes more than me. For real, I bring home 7 figures, almost multiple 7 figures a year. That's that's top 1%, maybe even 0.5%.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking for a man that makes more than me, that wasn't important to me. I'm looking for support, for kindness. I'm looking for, somebody that believes in my dreams. We're on the same page. We're still two kids, even though we've been married for 3 years and dating for 6. And so some of the dreams and goals we have, I'm always like, babe, like, how about this? You want a pool? You know, he's like, I want ATVs. I'm like, all right, let's look at homes in North Carolina. Like, I just, you know, when you practice lifestyle design, the sky's the limit. Everybody ain't scratching and surviving. Some people are having good times.
Right. For real, for real.
Yeah.
Oh man, this has been an amazing conversation. Like this is definitely the episode that I will listen to over and over again.
10 times. I'm gotta take notes.
I started taking notes and I was like, wait a minute, I can listen back to this. Okay.
I tell people, if you want to get started, honestly, like I mean, not just because I wrote it and not just because it's week 8 on the New York Times bestsellers list, but honestly, like Get Good with Money, the book that I wrote, 10 Simple Steps to Becoming Financially Whole. It is a roadmap, the same one that my husband and I are still on, a roadmap for your financial life. Yeah. It starts you with the simple stuff and works your way up all the way to the complex things. But it's written like you will, like if you hear my voice, you can be like, this sounds like Tiffany. And it's written like, you know, I wrote it specifically like as a teacher would, meaning breaking everything down, giving you homework, giving you lesson by lesson. I think that I wanted to leave like a legacy behind that when I'm no longer here, that I have left like almost like this financial Bible that people can use to change the rest of their financial life. And you can, if you go to getgoodmoney.com and copy.
Getgoodwithmoney.com, Get Good With Money.
Fix your bank.
Get your life.
Yes.
Get what everybody else thinks about how you living and just live for you.
Or water over ice cream.
Yes, water over. Yo, that's so water over ice cream. Yo, I love that. Water over ice cream.
Come on, that's the next book.
Yeah.
But no, Tiffany, we truly appreciate everything you told us. We caught you right before the 6-week vacation.
Yeah, you sure did.
So we feel even more blessed that we got you today.
Thank you.
So appreciate you. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your gems. I'm definitely going to be reading Get Good With Money.
Same.
And I'm going to be taking notes. I'm revisit a lot of things.
Thank you.
That's it.
You have a good one.
You too.
It's Blue Dope, y'all.
Hey.